Salutations, people of the internet, welcome to the database. According to the Chinese zodiac, 2024 marks the year of the dragon, and what fitting way to cap off the dragon's year than covering the gaming industry's most iconic purple dragon, Spyro. I myself have recently became a Spyro fan last year, where I played the original PS1 trilogy on my PS Vita, and thanks to the prior knowledge, this gave me an easier time recording footage that I'll be using in the 2018 Reignited Trilogy. Spyro started out as a joint project between Insomniac Games and Universal Studios. You might recognize Insomniac as the guys behind the Ratchet and Clank franchise, another game series I'm a huge fan of. And prior to Spyro, Universal Studios first dipped their toes into the gaming market with Crash Bandicoot in 1996. Spyro was made during the popularity of the 3D toy box style of collectathon platformers, starting with Super Mario 64. Universal Studios asked the guys from Insomniac to create a platformer mascot that would appeal to all ages and audiences, especially when the PlayStation was once known to have a common demographic of teens to young adults. Insomniac, founded by Ted Price and Alex and Brian Hastings, made their first game as a Doom clone known as Disruptor, which was a financial failure despite the great critical reception by Universal. The idea of having a dragon protagonist was the inspiration by Craig Stitt, who adored dragons. Spyro was initially going to be called Pete. However, to avoid having a lawsuit by Disney and their IP, Pete the Dragon, they came up with a different name change, from Pyro ending up with the name we love to this day. Spyro as a gaming series is beloved by many as a unique take on a 3D collectathon platformer, having wider open fields for players to run around, to gliding and soaring long distances. But what are these unique takes enough to make Spyro stand out from the other platformers? Let's take a trip to the artisan's world of dragons to find out. This is Spyro the Dragon. Our story begins with a dragon interview. During the interview, an elder dragon speaks about how all the dragon's worlds have lived in peace and harmony. However, a nasty comment catches the attention of Gnasty Nork, who heard one of the dragons calling him, well, ugly. Gnasty Nork got so offended by this comment, he turned all the dragons into crystals except for Spyro because he's so tiny. Thus, it's up to Spyro to free all 80 dragons from captivity, as well as rescuing 12 baby dragon eggs scattered across the 5 different worlds of dragons. As Spyro releases all dragon, the dragons would give Spyro advice on how to progress throughout the game, giving him tips on gliding and charging at enemies to using a pause menu.
Thank you for releasing me, Spyro. You can always check your progress by accessing the guidebook through the pause menu.
Yeah, these tips are useless. They say shit that you've probably already done just by playing the game. They still give you tutorial shit in the second world of the game.
Spyro! It's great to see you, but I gotta go.
Hey, didn't I already free you?
You're in Nasty's world now, Spyro. And you are the dragon that must defeat him.
Bring him on! I'm ready!
I'm ready! I'm ready! I'm ready! I'm ready!
Upon reaching Gnasty Nork's home world, we reach Gnasty himself in probably one of the worst boss fights I've ever witnessed in video game. You just keep running and charging during separate sections of the map. You chase these dragon egg thieves here, and another one there. You chase a stupidly fast Nork with these frustratingly tight turns. And the final section of the map is a platformer. I'm gonna jump the gun and say that all the bosses in Spyro 1 sucked. After defeating Gnasty Nork, Spyro gets a TV interview this time around. He said that after beating Nork, he wants to take a vacation to Dragon Shores, leading to Spyro 2, ending our first adventure.
Wow, I never thought I'd be rescued, especially by such a little dragon. What I mean is, I always believed in you, Spyro.
You gotta believe.
Spyro serves as a 3D collectathon platformer, where you collect treasure gems across different stages, free crystallized dragons, and finding 12 baby eggs for 100% completion. Spyro can do the basic jump for platforming, but upon pressing the jump button again in mid-air, you can make Spyro glide over far to reach platforms. However, gliding from one platform to another isn't always guaranteed, as you need to start gliding at the top of your jump to succeed. You can make Spyro roll left and right, which is useless, but more importantly, Spyro can spew fire as a form of attack. The fire breath has incredible range, enough to defeat large enemies that are spread apart, and useful to break containers that have gems to collect. Some containers and enemies can't be taken down with a fire breath, as this is where Spyro can use a charge ability to head ram into steel crates and armor. Spyro's charging ability can be used within certain platforms that grant Spyro a supercharge, where Spyro moves really fast to reach areas that he can't reach with a simple glide. And in the Reignited Trilogy, this supercharge has a fire effect that trails along Spyro. Finally, there's this little dragonfly called Sparks, and he serves as your health bar indicator, where Sparks changes colors based on how many hit points you have left, gold being 4, blue being 3, green being 2, and no sparks being 1. Refilling Sparks' meter is as simple as destroying little critters like sheep that turned into butterflies, which is the kind of food Sparks likes. Destroying larger sized enemies in this game rewards players with treasure gems, the main collectibles in this game. Each Spyro stage has a set amount of treasures for players to locate, and each gem is color-coded with different values. Most of the time, you'll find gems laying in plain sight, but the game really loves to encourage players to explore the entire stage, all for these shiny little things, and I make sure that I don't leave the stage without finding all the gems. Another form of collectible in this game are 12 dragon eggs that can be commonly found from these teasing robed thieves. These suckers run really fast, which means that Spyro needs to use a charge attack to reach them. In later levels, you need to use a supercharge to close the gap. Supercharging happens when Spyro runs across a specific arrow platform that gives Spyro super speed, higher jumps, and long distances. Do I need to talk about treetops? Okay, good. Also, collecting all 12 dragon eggs is vital for unlocking the secret final stage later on in the game. The first Spyro game is as basic in terms of 3D platformers as you can get, but with a dragon twist. I really love it when I find the highest point of the stage and glide along long distances. And to be honest, having these glitter vortexes for Spyro to elevate on kinda defeats the purpose of reaching to higher platforms, but most of the time they were simply used as shortcuts. Finally, there's one more gameplay style that makes Spyro unique. Flight stages, where Spyro is free to roam around in the sky. Completing the stages requires players to fly through and fire breathe through different obstacles before the timer runs out. The order of completing these stages are vague, which allows players to experiment and figure out the correct order of completion. While this game calls them flight stages, for all the Spyro games going forward, they are known as speedways, which is what I'll also call them from here on out. Going forward in this segment, I'll be discussing my experience with the definitive Spyro experience, thanks to the Spyro Reignited Trilogy on the PlayStation 4. Captured with my PlayStation 5. What's that, you're broke? And in terms of the Reignited Trilogy, there are minor differences between this and the PlayStation 1 original. For starters, one thing that I like about the Reignited version is the addition of skill points. These are little side missions that unlock little goodies. Plus, they are totally optional for 100% completion. In this collection, completing skill points for all 3 games unlock an art gallery filled with concept art of different characters featured in the games and more. I really enjoy completing all the skill points in all 3 Spyro games. games, as all 3 games have skill point objectives that are very easy to complete. Most of the time, the game asks you to destroy random objects across the stage. Other times, the game asks you to beat the boss without taking a hit, and the bosses in Spyro 1 are the worst set of bosses I've ever seen in video games. In fact, I don't think I can call them bosses at all. All the bosses in the game are just Spyro using his most basic attack 3 times. The bosses retreat closer to the goalpost, rinse and repeat. Fucking forgettable. So forgettable that I decided to not name them because these bosses aren't worth the attention. Except for Toasty. I love how it's just sheep fodder in a jack-o'-lantern costume and it's so cute. Not even Nasty no puts up an epic final fight. All you do in this final boss fight is chase a couple of egg thieves, then chase around Nasty Nork, who for some reason is faster than a tiny ass Spyro. And then the final section of the stage is just platforming challenge and Nasty Nork is down in 2 fire breaths. Fucking pathetic. I'll go over details regarding the graphical gameplay of the Reignited Trilogy in all 3 games, but I'll just talk about 2 things for this video: how Spyro controls when flying during the speedway sections and the camera. First of all, the graphical update for the Reignited Trilogy is absolutely beautiful. What was once bland and flat landscapes seen on the PlayStation 1 are now rich in detail and lighting on newer hardware, though sometimes it can be distracting when moving the camera around. This game has motion blur, which if you have a camera set to active, you won't notice a blur at all, but holy crap, turning the blur off was a mistake, because this makes the game run choppier than the given 30 frames per second. In the PlayStation 1 original, you move the camera using the trigger buttons, despite the DualShock controller already existing years ago when it came out in 1998. But thank God for the Reignited Trilogy for actually using the right analog stick for camera movement instead. Spyro when flying during the speedway sections feels pretty funny at first. When I booted up the Reignited Trilogy and entered my first speedway, it feels like Spyro was flying very slow compared to the PlayStation 1 original. Plus, rather than repeatedly tapping the X button to move a bit faster, the Reignited version uses this as a way for Spyro to gain a little lift in the air, which at times can be useless and gives Spyro a small inertia when moving around, something that from my experience makes me able to compromise around. But let's wrap it up. I'm giving Spyro the Dragon as a whole, whether you're playing it on the PlayStation 1 version or the Reignited version, the B rank. Don't get me wrong, it's a really fun game. It's just that there isn't a lot of things to do when it comes to giving us a variety of experiences. For the first game in the series, it's fine to keep things simple and fun, but by the time you reach the end of the game, it gets a little boring doing the same collectathon stuff. It kind of, in a way, makes the first game very bare bones compared to its amazing sequels. And even when you reach the final secret stage of the game, Nasty's loot, as much as I enjoy flying throughout the stage more than during the speedways, you're still doing the same collectathon stuff that you've done before, only with more treasure gems than the normal stages. And the strict timing for the stage's skill point can kiss my ass. I love how each of the dragons you rescue in the Reignited version have very unique personalities. It is way better and charming change that feels like an evolution of the original source material. Some even have new dialogue than the PlayStation 1 version. So yeah, simply put, the Reignited Trilogy is a definitive way to play all the original Spyro PlayStation 1 games, and I was so happy to earn the PlayStation Network Platinum Trophy for all 3 games. Oh yeah, one more thing I need to mention is the soundtrack. All 3 games have their soundtracks composed by Stuart Copeland from the legendary rock band The Police. And for this game's case, I can only recall liking not a whole lot of tracks, as the first game didn't have a lot of memorable ones than its sequels. But I got to give Insomniac Games credit for getting a rock and roll legend to produce their music. Well, what are your thoughts on Spyro the Dragon, the first game in the series? Did you enjoy the PlayStation 1 version? Did you enjoy the Reignited Trilogy even more? Let me know in the comments. Thumbs up the video if you like it, subscribe to the database, and follow me on social media as seen above. I'm Christopher James, and I'll see you next time where I cover Spyro 2, Ripto's Rage.
Once upon a time, there was a young dragon named Spyro. He journeyed across enchanting worlds to rescue other dragons from the spells of Nasty York. After battling Nasty and his minions, Spyro brought peace back to the land. Spyro Mania swept the country, and everyone lived happily ever after. Not! That feisty lizard burned herds of our sheep!